Welcome to That's Life. I'm your host, Leach. Thank you so much for tuning into our show today, and happy Saturday to each one of you. Please make sure that you like and follow and subscribe to all of our channels. You can go to our YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, IG, Twitter, and our LinkedIn, and also our newest website that we just launched at That's Life by Leach. All right, our sponsor of the evening is Full Focus Media Solutions. Book yourself a photo shoot today with Full Focus Media. You can follow them on IG at Full Focus Media and get 50% off your first photo shoot. You will not want to miss out on an opportunity like this. They're an amazing company and corporation, and you want to work with them if you're looking for photos. You can text That's Life to 404-438-2522 to book your shoot. All their information is below on our ticker, so please utilize them if you're looking for a photographer in the Atlanta area. Now, as you know, we always talk about COVID. That is the ever fluid thing that's been affecting all of us in terms of our businesses and what we do from day to day. Confirmed cases, as confirmed at 7:35 this evening, is 169 million global cases have been confirmed. Deaths is a little over 3.5 million. I'm asking each and every one of you, although we're getting back to a sense of normalcy and mask mandates are being lifted, please make sure that you're following the guidelines to the CDC. If you have not taken your vaccination, utilize that as a resource. I'm very proud to say that I've been fully vaccinated for now about 2 weeks, and I am all about trying to get back to what is the new norm as our life right now, okay? So on today's show, we're going to be talking about body image, and I'm excited about this show in particular because a lot has happened with my body. A lot of you remember when we first started this show, I was a little bit overweight, and we're going to talk about body image and the stigma behind it and just all things related to it with my very, very special guest, Coach Sarah. I'm excited about having Coach Sarah. We're going to do a Q&A session at the end. So please make sure that you drop all your questions if you have questions for her, okay? So when we come back, we're going to kick straight off into the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to That's Life. I'm your host, Leah Leach. Thank you so much for tuning into our show about body image with my very special guest, Coach Sarah. Now, as you know, we always bring the stats because we want to make sure that you are aware of the topic at hand and what we're talking about today. So according to DoSomething.org, body image is the way that someone perceives their body and assumes that others perceive them. The image is often affected by family, friends, social pressure, and the media. Approximately 91% of women are unhappy with their bodies and resort to dieting to achieve their ideal body shape. Unfortunately, only 5% of women naturally possess the body type often portrayed by Americans in the media. So as you know, I have a very special guest today, Coach Sarah, and we're going to talk about a little bit about body image. This is a Q&A session, so please make sure if you have any questions that you drop them in our comment box so we can answer them in our fourth segment. So Sarah, welcome to the show. I'm so excited about having you this evening.
Well, thank you for having me. I so appreciate being here. It's definitely an honor. Like I said earlier, I was like, I'm so excited. So this will be good.
Definitely. And our hope is to encourage, empower you, but also to give you education in terms of body image, because I think a lot of times we are so negative on ourselves. And so this show is to encourage you on how to look at your body a little bit different than you did when we first started the show. Mm-hmm. So Sarah, my first question to you is tell the viewers just a little bit about who you are and what you do professionally.
Yes. So my name is Sarah Placencia, and I guess we call it a full-time coach. So I work from home and help people with different exercise and nutrition programs. But I like to say I'm definitely more into the mindset part of it, because that's really the key part. That's like the beginning of the race, that's putting on the right shoes before you go out, like for that run. And so I do that, as well as teach Zumba toning, strength training classes, dance fitness. And yeah, that's what I do, and kind of have been doing that since, I think it's 2007 is when I first got started. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure, but I love it. So
I bet. And I bet with the COVID pandemic, it definitely taught you a lot more about what body image looks like and what we definitely have seen and been exposed to. So, my first question to you is, what does a positive image look like or mean to you? Because we all have our own perception of what that is, right? But what do you think a positive body image looks like?
I mean, yeah, there's so many layers to it. And I think it's definitely something where you're free from comparing yourself to somebody else. And I think that's really where it starts, because everybody is so unique and beautiful in their own way. And I think we have to get away from the stigmas that we're taught is beautiful, and just look at ourselves with beauty, and kind of tell ourselves, I am beautiful. I am these things, these words of affirmation, because I think that's a positive body image without even looking in the mirror. Just like thinking those things is where it first starts. So,
Definitely. And I tell people all the time when we talk, a lot of it starts here. The things that you do start here. And it's so easy for you to not say that it doesn't have anything to do with this. It has everything to do with the physical, but whatever your mental says, your physical follows. And
right.
so definitely that's a good place and thing to say, definitely, for sure. What does self-love mean to you? And I mean, obviously some of us struggle with self-love. I know I can speak for me. Self-love was something that I struggled with for a very long time. So much and so that I actually didn't really start to really truly love myself until I turned 40. And that's a long time to not really fully love yourself. So what do you believe self-love means?
Yeah, that is definitely a very loaded question, because I think it's so different for everybody. I don't know if you've ever read the 5 Love Languages, but that is such a great book to, we look at that book and we think, okay, this is how I show love to others and how I perceive love from others. But if you kind of take that same idea and look at it completely different, and look at it from the place of, how do I show myself self-love, and use the 5 love languages as a guide. And I think that is kind of a good place to start, because, some years you're going to need this love language more than others. You might need words of affirmation in the very beginning. It's going to be something where you have to empower yourself to maybe do acts of service, as in, go and do a workout and enjoy it by remembering what your body can do. But again, that starts with that mindset. So I think that, I kind of look at it like in every area of those things, like, kind of going through those love languages, again, words of affirmation, those positive things that you can do, acts of service, like I said, sometimes the exercises, but even like decluttering your office. Like, how often are we like, I'm just so frazzled? And it's like, a lot of times it's because of our external stimulus is driving us crazy. And it's like, I think when we start to look at it like, okay, I'm going to clean this up because I'm going to feel better afterwards. Like, this is an act of service, not like, oh, I have to do that, or why doesn't so-and-so clean up their mess, or something like that. It's like, no, take control over what you can do, because at the end of it, how good will you feel? Like, I know sometimes even on Sundays, I'm like, I just go into this like manic cleaning, but I love it. And I wasn't always like that. Like, it was something where I was like, oh my gosh, I have to clean. But then I was like, wait, I would feel so much better when I did this. So that would be acts of service, and even touch. That's something too that, so many different layers to that. But I think like, a bubble bath, or painting your nails, or something where you're just, dry brushing, like all these things that you can give and show love back to yourself is just huge. What else is there? I know there's gifts. Going out and buying something cute. I mean, if you do this every single day, don't do that. Everything in moderation, right? But that's a way to go out and show love to yourself. Also quality time. I've noticed that I was definitely struggled with being a people pleaser for years. And of course, sometimes that still comes up. And I have to remember, like, okay, do I feel replenished after I hang out with this person, or am I totally depleted? Because maybe putting a boundary up means now you're spending quality time with you, and maybe you're doing something creative, or maybe you're going for a walk, or you're reading a good book, or you're Netflixing, a series that you absolutely love. Like, again, everything in moderation, but that quality time spent with just you, I think that is so, so needed. So looking at those 5 love languages, did I leave anything out? I'm trying to think. Was that all?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that was all 5. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Otherwise, I could just talk all day about self-love in those areas. Okay.
And I understand that to be true. And I'll tell you, last year was a very difficult year for me, because when the pandemic first started, I really was in a bad place emotionally, physically. And what that translated to was there was no self-love there. I can still distinctively, as a teenager, remember my mother always telling me how beautiful I was and couldn't receive that information.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, as it progressed, no matter who I was with, if I was dating, when I was married the first time and second time, never being able to receive that information.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was like my 40th birthday, something happened. It's like a light bulb clicked and was like, wait a minute. Are you saying that you're not beautiful because of somebody else's expectation, or are you not saying you're not beautiful because of your own expectation and what that looked like?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's important, like you said, to talk about the love languages, because those are the things that help us in the process of learning how to self-love, and trying to find that. It's easy to go to the external things too, but I think sometimes it's harder to go internal and figure out what's going on with me internally. Why I can't self-love. So thank you for saying those points. And we are going to talk about some pointers and tips on how to self-love and body positivity, because it's so important that we do that. I made a joke, honestly, right before the show to my wife, because I have several tattoos. And although I have several tattoos, when you see me on the set, I always wear a sweater, or I have a jacket on, or I have something on. And my wife said, well, why? You're talking about body image, and you don't want to show your tattoos. That's a part of who you are. And that's a part of your uniqueness. And she said, well, why don't you show your tattoos? And I said, well, I always worry about, people making prejudgment because I have tattoos, and they immediately say, well, she's uneducated, or she's ghetto, or she's this, not understanding that those things don't define who I am. It's just art. And so at the end of the day, people are so critical when it comes to body image. So thank you for those points.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
My next question, what causes people to be insecure about themselves and have negative body image? Because like we just talked about, prejudgment is a big component to why people are negative when it comes to body image. So why do you think people are insecure, Sarah?
Yeah. I mean, I think it really stems from just early ages and, just being around our peers and the people we look up to. And I think sometimes it can start easily in the home because, we might hear our mother say, I'm so fat, or I'm so ugly, or this doesn't fit because of this reason. And I think that has a lot to do with women and looking up to somebody that they're like, oh, well, I look like her. Am I ugly? Like, you start to question it at a young age. And I feel like that can definitely, go into your teenage years and adulthood. And subconsciously you're thinking it, but you don't know why. And so I think just sometimes it's like retracing those steps, but also like as soon as you feel those negative emotions, like starting to not hide them or hinder them or act in a negative way because of it, like instead bring it to the surface and be like, okay, I'm going to forgive that person or that circumstance and to change my path now. And I think that that's really something that, I had struggled with as well. And even just, hearing it and seeing it and, knowing that, oh, if you get more attention, if you look this way or, a certain way or whatever. And I think that was something that, I think that's why I wanted to become, involved in health and fitness, because it was something that made me feel good, but I also did it in a negative way, which I had overtrained and, kind of got into this vicious cycle. So, tracing it back to when I was younger and hearing certain people say things, I think you kind of have to like get to a point where you forgive them, but also forgive yourself, because, the victim will stay the victim forever until they do say enough is enough. I'm going to forgive that. past memory and understand that it probably had nothing to do with me. Like, I think that's a lot of times we take it so personally, and we have to like let things go. You know, I think anxiety, what is it, or depression lives in the past, and anxiety lives in the future. And we have to be so present in the moment now. And so when those negative things come up, don't bury it, but maybe bring it up to the surface and be like, well, wait, why do I think that? Like, okay, well, let's talk about what I am proud of, you know, and you start to combat the negative with positive. And it's not going to happen overnight, but I feel like over time you start to practice these more positive behaviors and make that choice. You know, we're not so reactionary as quickly. And I think that's definitely what's helped me as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I can speak for me. One of the things that influenced how I felt was the discord of being compared to someone else, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you from my experience, I was always considered the ugly duckling of the friends. I was always considered to be that girl because I was chocolate. Most of my friends were fair skinned or they were Caucasian. And so a lot of times what that looked like was, well, she's okay. But I had a beautiful body and a figure, but my face wasn't something that was appealing to a lot of men. And so that took an influence on how I felt about myself. And I can say that, you know, like I said, it took a long time for me to get over the hurts and the feelings that I felt, no matter what people would say. My wife is a perfect example of a person who used to filter me good information. And one of the things I would always say to her is, well, you're my spouse. You're supposed to say that. It was just a defensive mechanism for all the hurt that I had gone through in the past. So definitely, those things can play an impact on how you feel. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue on this topic of body image with my very, very special guest, Coach Sarah. We'll be right back.
You ever just dream big, dream real big? I mean, I wonder what that would look like. I think the best part about being behind the camera and figuring it all out is getting the pieces, collecting all of the pieces that make the puzzle a complete picture. How do you make it all come together? Situations, scenarios, and different things on the screen. What is it that you want to do? When it's time to actually be creative, collaboration is key. You can count on me to help turn that vision into reality.
Starfighters. It's a new action-adventure book series about broken teams being forced into an abnormal situation. Their unique powers and abilities to combat a deranged psychopath and his influence from causing senseless death. Available on Amazon is Story 1, The Beginning, and Story 2, The Struggle. Both are in ebook and paperback formats. It's the start of something that's going to be an epic tale and will become a household name. Please visit www.zeontstarfighters.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back to That's Life. I'm your host, Leach. Thank you so much for tuning into our show about body image with my very, very special guest, Coach Sarah. And we were talking a little bit about body image and how it impacts women and just in general, how it impacts people. So now we're going to go to our next statistic. And I think it's important to kind of show you this in a breakdown as well, too. Research conducted in the United States showed that around 25% of male children and adolescents were concerned about their muscularity and leanness by expressing a greater desire for toned and defined muscles in male kids. So you figure a quarter of children are thinking about that already. Research has shown that around 50% of young 13-year-old American girls reported being unhappy with their bodies. This number grew to nearly 80% by the time girls reached 17 years of age. So you figure by almost 18 years old, 80% of girls are unhappy with their bodies. And that's just a crazy number. And I have 2 teenagers. So obviously to think about that, to think that that might be something they might struggle with is pretty deep. So Sarah, quick question to you is, what are some things that frustrate you about how women are portrayed and stigmatized? Because let me just be honest with you. I get so frustrated with TV, magazines, social media, all of it.
Yeah.
What are some things that frustrate you when it comes to how body image is portrayed in the media?
Yeah, I probably the same frustrations that you have. I think, when we see just filtered and, there's so many face apps and body apps probably, I just find that people are already struggling with comparing themselves to someone. And then when they see something that's just not even attainable, comparison is already the struggle. Why make it so even more ridiculous, right? So yes, I definitely have had my own struggles. And, even for myself, I have to, sometimes just unsubscribe or unfollow certain people because I'm like, okay, this is a little bit, I just feel like, some people just are portraying it wrong and doing it for the wrong reasons sometimes because, if you're getting attention and there's a reason for it, sometimes I think we just have to, look at the bigger picture and also understand that everybody is beautiful, not just a certain type or a certain size or anything like that. And so I think, yeah, I am definitely frustrated with it. And I try to hold my own. So if I'm like, hey, that's not cool that you said that, block, so I've definitely struggled with it too. Not only will I unfollow people, but I'll also call it like I see it and, sometimes even screenshot it and be like, here's this message somebody left me, go spam them. No, so, cause I'm like, hey, I want people to understand that I'm not going to put up with this. I think that's what we have to do. We have to, bad things happen when good people do nothing. So I think when you see something negative, bring it to attention. Don't continue to bury it because like I said, the fact that you're doing, this story and multiple stories, I think it's so important for people to understand, no, there is still this negative, that's in the media. And the more we bring it to light and the more we say, everybody is beautiful and everybody needs to understand that to stop this fake, everything, just that's enough. I feel the same way. And yeah, I don't get magazines for that reason. I'm just I'm not going to subscribe to that either. And, you have to do what's right for your own mental health too. If you find yourself comparing yourselves to somebody who is maybe your goal or whatever, you have to kind of say okay, I'm using this person as negative inspiration and I probably shouldn't be continuing on this path because it makes me feel bad. And I think that's where we have to kind of look at it. Is this somebody, positive because of your mental health? It's uplifting you. It's causing you to, think, and it's causing you to remember your own life as of value, or is it somebody that you quickly go into your own judgments? And I think that's where we have to remember to, take that time to ask ourselves that so that we can then make a better decision on who we are. So.
For sure. And I'll tell you, I tell people this all the time. If I didn't have a show, I would not have social media. Mm-hmm. I have literally in the last 5 years, I can't stand social media and where it's gotten us. I think far too often we're so stuck on, like you said, the filtering. And I'm even guilty of that. I have Snapchat and I'll be on Snapchat filtering my face because I don't want people to see my imperfections, or I don't want my hair to be misplaced, or the sun hits a particular way.
Oh, yeah. We all have done that. So don't feel like
absolutely. Yeah. We're all guilty of that. And I think to some capacity, some of us have taken it to the next level. And it's become, instead of about the person internally, it's become about the external and what that looks like. So yeah, I'm so over it. I can't stand it. I have a daughter who is 12 years old. Shout out to my almost 12-year-old, and I'm sure she's watching this show. One of the things that I have a question about is how can we help our little girls who struggle with body image, and even our little boys, particularly when they see an image of what perfection looks like. I know for my daughter, I'm thankful that I show her brown skin is beautiful, her curly hair is beautiful, and I affirm her every day. But how can we help our little girls? Because our little girls are out here looking at things daily and they're comparing themselves. So how do we help them with that struggle?
Yeah, I think just understanding that it is there, and also kind of talking about, how you perceive it, but then asking those questions. I feel like that's super important. I don't have children of my own. I do have, nieces and nephews, and I think like it's just a different era of how, when I grew up, there was social media that just started because Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook the same year I went to college. So the first year I got it was because of him. So it was like back in 2002. And so you weren't around that, like when you're 12, 13, I guess there was MySpace, but still it's just prevalent everywhere. So I think, having an open conversation and remembering to like say positive things about yourself, but then also to, continue that. And I know mothers do such a great job of like, pouring into their daughters about, how beautiful they are, or at least the amazing mamas out there. So I think that's just key. You can hear 100 compliments and one negative will just destroy that. So make it 200 positive compliments, and leave. I've seen some people leave like Post-its like in the mirror. And like, I love that idea where it's like, it's just, again, those 5 love languages, making it prevalent, like, and, as much stimulus as you can talk about and just bring those things up. And, there are as many negatives that there are in the world, there's probably even more positives if we look for it. So as much as, we're drawn to the negative because I feel like that's just human nature. That's what drives like, ratings. That's what drives like all the negative things, because, you see trolls and it's like if you're going to have a billion comments, it's because of something negative going on, which is so sad. But if you stop and like, I don't know, at least for my social media, I'm like, I love social media, but I filtered through it. So I think like it just takes action, and it's something where, guiding your daughters and helping women to also, and young girls to understand like, hey, asking them like, is this girl encouraging you? Like, how do you feel about this? Like, or is there something positive that she's reminding you of? Like, you guys do have very similar hair. Like, isn't it gorgeous? Like, bringing out these things. But if it is something negative, then maybe talk about like, hey, you don't always have to follow, this person. If you leave feeling less, secure about yourself, like it's still a choice at the end of the day. And I think like just searching out the positive influences, because they are there. Sometimes it takes some digging, but I always find that like you go to one person's profile and then you find like 10 more and you're like, oh, but I really like this girl. And oh, I really like this girl. Like, so I feel like if you're searching for the positive, it is there. And I think just teaching other people about that is important. So,
definitely. And I'll speak too for my little girl. I'm very proud of her as she shouted out and said hi. One of the things that she does that I absolutely love and admire about her, she has this huge whiteboard in her room. And every morning she writes an affirmation on her whiteboard, every single morning. And she reads it to herself. And she believes what she reads. It's not just that she puts it up there. She really believes what she reads. And she has helped me to love me more because I see how she loves herself. And so shout out to her, because she's one of the strongest little people I know.
Yeah.
She makes me proud daily, and my son too. But of course, I'm talking about my daughter at this moment. Right. So we're going to now go to the boys. So how do you think men, or do you think that men are equally objectified in the media as women? And I think, in my opinion, I have my opinion about how men are objectified, but what do you think? Are they equally objectified as women are?
Mm-hmm. That's so hard to say because, I do have one perspective. So I think, when I see it, when I'm on social media myself, the negative or the comments that irk me are mostly coming from men, so I feel like, of course, I feel objectified more so by men, but I don't to put it in the other side, I think they are in some ways, probably just not as much. But again, I have one perspective, so I can't speak for everybody, but I think it's important to kind of know that, like, I think the best filter to use is kind of like, okay, you can say that, maybe there is a tasteful looking man, and if you say something and comment on a photo or something like that, like, okay, turn it around. Would that be also offensive if a man said that about you? Like, take it personally, like, put make it a level playing field. Like, so I do find that, like, it makes me feel kind of awkward when women kind of speak on that, like, just because I automatically think, okay, reverse it. Ooh, that's a little, I don't know. So at least that's the way I look at it. And so I think it's just important to just respect people, whoever they are. Like, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I agree with you that I think that sometimes we're so quick to talk about women, like the Me Too movement, and we're so quick to talk about sexual harassment when it comes to women. But men go through the same type of stigma. It's just a different type. It is a different type of stigma that they go through. But I think far too often we think that body image only pertains to women, when it does pertain to men too. There is a certain image and a body image that men struggle with and go through physically and even emotionally too. And of course, men process that way different than we do. So that's a whole nother topic too.
Oh yeah.
We're going to start our halftime show with our minute to, well, we'll just let you see. Check out what we got going on. Minute with the Flavor King.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Yuri, and welcome to Minute with the Flavor King. Cooking is one of my favorite things to do. I love spices, but many people don't know the difference between seasoning and flavor. So here's the difference. To season is to bring out the natural flavor of the food without changing it. Seasonings are added near the end of cooking. Seasonings include salt, pepper, and acid. Flavoring changes the original flavor of the food. It can be used to create a unique flavor. Flavorings include chili powder, lemon pepper, garlic powder, and chives. So whether you season or flavor, have fun with cooking.
Want to advertise your business or product on our show, That's Life? Go to our website at that'slifebylealeach.com. We have packaging for those that would like to utilize our ticker every Friday and Saturday for just $15 per show. You can also do video advertisements for $40 for our Saturday show. Take your business to the very next level and utilize us so that we can help you expand your business. Until then, make butterfly moves daily. Again, you can go to our website at that'slifebylealeach.com for all packaging, pricing, and for further details.
Oh my gosh, I love him.
Welcome back to That's Life. I'm your host, Leah Leach. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you like our minute with the Flavor King. Shout out to Mr. Yuri for doing such an amazing job explaining about seasoning and flavorings. We do have a minute segment for every show, so catch our next one when we talk about some things. We're going to do a minute with a mom, and of course, that will be me, because we're made of money. We're going to talk about tips and ways that you can save money. So make sure that you tune in for that one. All right, we're back with now our Coach Sarah. Coach Sarah, we have some questions in the box, so we're going to throw these questions at you.
Okay.
And I have some questions for you too. And we're going to also talk about.
Just raise your hand. I'm a talker.
I know, right? It's going to be super funny. This is going to be hilarious. And I'm actually excited about these questions because I think it's important to acknowledge the questions that our viewers have, because it's just important to talk about it from that side. So we're going to do something a little bit different. And I know I normally don't do this, but I'm going to put our questions on blast for our people out there. So this is the first question that comes from Glenda. What advice do you have for preteens who are already preoccupied with body image? And that is a amazing question to ask. As we have lots of preteens in my family, I could speak. We have about 4 preteens in our family. So, how do you help them when it comes to body image and what that looks like?
Mhm. I think, kind of reiterating what we said earlier, giving them the compliments and just understanding like what their talents are and just helping them to grow. I think confidence has a lot to do with body image too. And especially preteens, they just feel like they're not good at something. And I think exploring that can also help in that body image issue because, when you have confidence in one thing, it can trickle into other areas of your life. And again, social media is a big one, asking, who they follow. And I mean, that's probably tough to, give me your phone. You want to do it from a place of love, but, for each family, the best way to go about that. But I think it's just super important to understand who their role models are and maybe, seeking out more positive influences and, just doing your own research too, I think is really, really important for the age of that child and seeing who is out there that might, be somebody positive that you're like, okay, well, maybe this person and tagging them in something and tagging your daughter or, like slide in, like, oh, look at this, like on your phone, but I think that's super important too. So,
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say take their phones because both of my little preteens and teenager have a phone. And I am constantly in their phone.
Yeah.
Why? Because I want to make sure that whatever they see, that they see good, positive, wholesome things. Not just from a place of being nosy, because I don't, want to be nosy, but definitely so that they can know that the things that they're looking at are good for not only for their heart, but good for their mind. So absolutely great answer for that one. So our next question comes from, ironically, my daughter, Carmen, who asked, what should parents tell their kids in order to make them feel better about their parents? And that's a great question too, because I think far too often we as parents don't really know how to help our little people, especially when they're teenagers and they're hearing a bunch of stuff at school. So what should we tell them to help them feel better about their parents?
Yeah, I think, remembering the things that, maybe at one point they were happy about themselves and to kind of remind them of those things. Because I feel like, again, the confidence can come from so many different things. And, even as a small child, like getting them back into the things that they did where they had fun with it, or a certain hobby that you find like, hey, let's do that together. And, kind of just finding a common ground and growing from that. And, that body positive, image, maybe it takes that practice. Your daughter is a great example of that. I love that idea of, just writing it on her board every day. There's gratitude journals. There's so many amazing, I don't know. I grew up on Lisa Frank. So I'm like, give me all the stickers and the stationery. But you go into any like hobby store or, you're going to find some fun stationery. So I think just making something fun out of it, there's always those coloring books of positive affirmations. I think some of those things that are just practicing things like that and doing it together, I think can definitely help, not only the parent grow, but also the child, but having this and remembering to uplift them in those ways that, maybe your parent did the same, or maybe they didn't. So what are the things that you wish you would have had as a child? I think that's important to go back to, retracing that and seeing what could help them is probably what could help you. So the growing, I mean, we're never too old to grow. So I think whatever you do for them, do it together. Like, I think it's super important.
Definitely. And I have some more questions. It seems like our kids are asking questions, which is good.
Yeah.
Mr. Yuri, his question for you is, what do you think about self-confidence in high school and how bad it will be? And that's a great question because I can say high school students are vicious. I'm just going to speak on my truth. They can be very vicious with the things that they say. So how do you help build someone with self-confidence when they're in high school? And how do you prepare them for what that will look like when they go to high school?
I think, to think about, when you have something to remember, and then when you're confronted with that, then you're not going to take offense to it, but you're going to go to that answer. So I think it's important to be prepared for that. And so that's a great question, just to have your mind open to that. And I think, when you hear something negative, I think replying back with, well, that's just your opinion. And then just leave it like that. Like sometimes it's just like putting it back on them, and then they have to think like, oh, and I think sometimes people will say something just to get a stir, just to get a reaction, just to get attention, even if it is negative. Like a lot of the people who are bullies they're just searching for attention. And maybe it's because they were brought up in a negative environment and that's the attention that they got. And so they think, okay, in order to get attention, this is what how do I have to act? And so I think like, to come back from it and just say like, I think, well, that's just your opinion. And then name something, maybe positive about yourself, or you just leave it like that. Well, that's just your opinion. Thank you though. And then just walk away. But I feel like that would be my tip going forward.
And I tell people the best offense is to have a good defense, right? Mm-hmm. You don't always have to respond with words. Action speaks so much louder. And I think that sometimes the best things that you can do is to just let people sit in whatever they say. You don't have to engage in it or even give it any attention. That's just the best way to handle it. So another question from Mr. Yuri is, what do you think about role models and how it has been influential to kids today? And that's an awesome question. As a matter of fact, I actually have that as a question to ask, because a lot of the people that are out there in terms of role models, some of them are pretty good. Mm-hmm. Some of them not so much, but it was that way for all of us, really. There really was some people that, were definitely pressed the boundaries of body image, such as Madonna and Lady Gaga. They pressed the boundaries, even So what do you think about some of the role models and how it's influenced kids today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with that too. And that's the thing too, like ask yourself, like, does that make you feel a certain way? Is it good or bad? And I think that's where you can ask yourself, like, am I inspired for positivity from this, or am I kind of feeling bad for myself? And I think that's, like I said, that's a filter to kind of use with anybody, even friendships and, going back to even preteens and kids in school, like you have to remember the things that people say to you. It's because they're mirroring whatever it is on the inside outward to you. And I think like we have to like remember that they're their own person. They have their own stuff going on. And we, as much as it's easy to say now at 37, like, don't take offense. But, I definitely took offense by certain things that people would say. And I definitely struggled with, my own body image issues and went through, my own, like, what was it, like overtraining. But then also it was, I struggled with emotional and binge eating. And it wasn't until I kind of came back to, when that could have started. And it was because I took offense and I wanted to please people and I wanted to be something I wasn't. And I think that's super important to kind of know that going forward, nobody knows anything. Like, going into school, going into even work, colleges, like people are just trying to do the best that they can. And sometimes they come across as offensive and we can't take it personally. So at the end of the day, look at the celebrities and the people that influence you. Are they influencing you positively or are they influencing you negatively? And it's still your choice at the end of the day to look at that influence and take positive action on it or negative action. So just remember to choose your friends and choose your influences wisely.
Definitely. Great answer. Our next question comes from Janelle Brooks. How can a person change their self-image when they have gone through years of negative self-image? And that is an amazing question, because sometimes the damage is from years and years of compounded thoughts, process, words that people have said. So how can a person change their self-image when they've gone through that?
Yeah, I think sometimes the external, like who you're around now, is probably influencing you in a negative way. And it is so hard to make changes, especially if the people around you are toxic and feeding into that negativity. And so, it's really difficult, especially, as preteens and teens, like, maybe that's in the home. And I feel like you have to like then search out, other positive influences, like, teachers or people at church or somebody that you can really rely on to help you build that confidence back up, to help your body image just change about you. Because after so many years, like, I feel like you will change out of inspiration for something better, but also out of desperation. Like I feel like anger can be used in a positive way. let me reiterate. Like I do feel like sometimes you have to get mad about it. Like you have to just say like, okay, enough is enough. I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm not going to listen to this negativity anymore. Like I've had to do that with people really close to me. And I was like, we're not going to talk about that because that makes me feel this way. And they're like, oh, well, okay, but so-and-so. And I'm like, no, I'm not gossiping. Like, we're not doing that anymore. And they usually will, one of two things happen. You know, they're gonna get mad at you and try to, you know, convince you otherwise. But if you continue to not engage in it, they're gonna then probably distance themselves. Even, you know, and I think that's the best way to go about it is just to like look at your surroundings. You know, they always say you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. And are those 5 people that you want to really emulate or really want to be like? And if not, then it's okay. There's billions of people in the world. We can make new friends. Like, it's okay.
Definitely. So now we're going to talk about some tips and ways to practice body positivity. You can still drop your questions because we can answer those if we have any time in the back end. So here are 10 ways to practice body positivity. Now, I am a firm believer that tips and tools are how you get better. You cannot get better if you don't have something to work with. So the first one and the most important one is positive affirmation. Self-love is to speak it out loud and to speak it often. Okay. Give yourself daily affirmations about yourself, verbal encouragements and reminders. It is important that you are doing that daily. I think sometimes we think that, okay, I'm just saying today because I have on makeup, I'm pretty. But when you don't have on makeup, do you feel the same way? So speak positive affirmation to yourself every single day when you wake up, before you go to bed at night, because it will force you to kind of deprogram all the negativity that's in your mind. Number 2, think healthier, not skinnier. This one is critical when you're dealing with body image. Too often, we are asking ourselves, what do we need to do to get smaller, as opposed to what do we need to do to get healthier? Sarah, I'm going to throw this question to you. How does the physical health impact the body image? Because people don't get that these two things are linked.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I love, get healthier, not skinnier. I think even healthier, you know, that word can even mean a negative connotation. So I think it's retraining your brain. Because I know I struggle with that. You know, I use exercise as overtraining, punishment for what bad I ate. And then I use the scale to measure my worth. And if I didn't weigh a certain amount, I would then, you know, starve myself the next day and then binge the next. And it was such an ongoing cycle. And I think like, you know, it starts with small behaviors, you know, and for me, what helped me was just throwing away the scale. I was like, my worth is not based on you, little jerk. You know, I got angry about it, like, you know, and I know I've talked to people who also struggle with that. And I'm like, that's the first step. Just get rid of it. And they're like, what? And it's almost because they've really grown close to it, because sometimes it's their best friend, you know, if they're like, oh, look at me, you know? So I think it's, yes, try to have a better relationship with yourself, not the scale. And so getting rid of that and looking at it like, you know, okay, if I truly love myself, would I, you know, eat 5 pieces of pizza, you know, when I feel like, okay, 3, I feel comfortable now. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to be aware and just notice like maybe the things that do trip us up and then we do have guilt for. Like to this day, I'm like, I get a small bag of Doritos but I get 1 bag, and that's like only when we go grocery shopping. So every other week I'll get one of those like small bags and I'll eat it in the car because I love it so much. And I'm like, MSG. But I know for me, if I had that in the pantry, I would just eat multiple bags. And so I think for me, I just had to understand, okay, what's a weakness of mine? It's, you know, there's things that I do want to binge on, but if they're not present, that helps me so much more, because out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely.
You know? And so same thing with, you know, building that confidence is going to come from, you know, maybe your posture. I know my friends were saying that I had better posture once I started weightlifting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do. Like I always had concave shoulders, and my mom would pull my shoulder back. I'm like, this isn't normal, Mom. and so once you started like being able to, lift a little bit heavier and measuring your success by what your body can do rather than even inches, sometimes I'm like, don't measure, like, let's just focus on, okay, how long can you hold a plank this week? Or how do you feel? Like, have you bumped your weights up? Have you, how often did you get outside? Like, start to keep track and journal about the things that your body can accomplish. And you're going to get healthier, step by step. It's going to be a compound effect, but it starts with something small. And once you have a little bit more confidence in that small thing, you can add on to it. You don't have to change like, okay, I'm only going to drink water and I'm going to do this whole, detox. And it's like, no, start small because your body is going to react in a negative way when you try to change too much anyway. So small, attainable changes is going to help.
Absolutely. And I was just going to say to add to that too, because that's something that one of our viewers said, it is hard. It is going to be a challenge, I'm speaking for experience is that a lot of times we have triggers and we don't realize that the food that we eat is actually a trigger to something else. So I know for me, I am an emotional eater. I know that now, but that took a lot of years to recognize that. That wasn't something I realized in 2 days, 3 days, 6 months, a year. It actually took me about 5 to 10 years to realize I eat when I'm happy. I eat when I'm sad. I eat when I'm excited. I eat for anything.
Right.
To recognize that you have triggers and to control those triggers. The other thing is something you said, which was very important, Sarah, which is to know the fact that you have to do things in moderation. You can't just take everything away from your body. If you do that, you actually gain weight a lot of times because you take so much away from your body and your body's like, well, where's the fuel? What's the thing that, and we go back to eating that and you gain the weight again. So it's all about control, moderation, and definitely, most definitely knowing what your triggers are. So always remember those 3 things when it comes to the weight part of it. And don't be, like you said, don't be so consumed with the scale. The scale is, I say the scale is the devil. It's just kind of like going into a grocery store and you see all the candy. The candy by the register is the devil. They could put lots of other things there. They choose to not.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Number 3, compliment others freely. This is a big one for me. Be kind to others because you never know when it's going to be you that needs to hear the encouraging words, because in turn, it helps you to be kinder to yourself. Be kind to people around you when it comes to whatever they're going through. Number 4, surround yourself with positivity. Curate your social media feed and hide fad diet posters. Look for people who practice self-love and encouragement. Man, I cannot tell you how critical and important that one is. So often we see all these things with no shade to them, but the apple cider vinegar gummies and quick weight loss things that you can do. Those things do work maybe, but that is not the way to make yourself feel good about who you are and where you are in terms of your body. So find things that are going to encourage you and practice self-love. Talk a little bit about that, Sarah, because I think that sometimes we get so caught up in what we see as opposed to knowing and hearing the things that are important when it comes to our bodies.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. And I think there's so many ways to get healthier without spending thousands of dollars. Like, I think sometimes we get wrapped up into, oh, if I just had this next thing, or if I just bought this, then I'd be able to do X, Y, Z. And, it starts with your mindset. Like, okay, maybe that would help you, but you still have to be in the mindset to take a gummy every day, right? Like, it's going to always be from the neck up is going to make your life healthier in the long run, and I think it's super important just to know that, and a lot of my clients, I'm just like, hey, let's start with let's hit your water goal. Let's, take your, try to hit, 75 to 100 ounces in a day. And let's just focus on that this week. And I think that automatically will help, flush out toxins, make you feel better. A lot of times it's free, thank goodness. And I think like that's something we take for granted, and it's something that we can do, basically every day. And so I think starting small and then working your way up is going to be the best way to go about it, because you build confidence when you accomplish something. And it can start small. And I know even for me, I stopped biting my nails when I was 29. I've been nail bite free for 9 years. And it's something that I was like, oh my gosh, I was able to do this. What? And it gave me the confidence to like do other things in my life. And I was definitely panic attacks, like seriously, like rashes on my arms. Like I was definitely not as, I couldn't easily talk. I actually had a panic attack on the telephone because I was trying to do a team call, very much like this, but this is video. And I had a panic attack, and I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? You know, and somebody else had to take over the call because my heart was beating so fast. And it just starts with something small. And knowing that if you failed it, that doesn't mean you're going to fail forever. You know, it just means you're trying. And sometimes it will take 100 tries before you get it and you make it a habit, but it's still worth it in the end. So keep trying. Like that's the important part. Like I kept buying this one bag of vegetables, you know, the one with broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots. It's like, I'm just going to start with this one bag because like I hate cutting up vegetables, but at least these are already cut up. And I threw away so many of those freaking bags, but I started to like actually eat them a little bit at a time. And then I was like, okay, let me try to saute these. Oh, that tastes a little bit better. Makes my house smell like farts, but whatever. It's good for me. and it did. It helps. Like knowing that you're not a failure if you fail 100 times. Okay. You're a failure the day you quit. So just don't quit, you know? And I mean, not the day you quit, but you know what I mean? Like, just don't throw in the towel. Like, yeah, you can quit one day, but you can come back to it. As long as you keep coming back to it, that's showing self-love and self-care right there. So
absolutely. And I'm going to acknowledge 2 comments that I see in here, as I'm sure they're both going to laugh when I say this. Janelle Brooks says, chocolate is for me. And Sean Leach says, ice cream is my weakness. And listen, we all have a vice, right? We all have something that we love. Mm-hmm. It's all about moderation. And if you don't do it in moderation, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Have the one thing, set yourself to have one thing that you decide, you know what, I'm going to try to reduce it, not get rid of it, reduce it. Yeah. And then if you feel like you've reduced it, then get rid of it, or whatever way you have to do it. But don't make it make it a goal that's possible, but not so unattainable. And I think that that's where we struggle when it comes to fads and diets. We give ourselves these unattainable goals that are not realistic.
I think restriction is like the worst thing ever. And I feel like if you can add to your diet, as in look at the positive things you can add, like the more fiber filled foods, that will actually help fill you up. More water opposed to, you know, other calorie dense drinks. You know, look at the things you can add. And I think that helps because it does give you better energy. Like your body's like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Right. Absolutely.
So, definitely. So,
absolutely. So now we're going to talk about the next one, which is focus on the things you like about yourself. Counter a positive thought when you're having a negative one. This is important because I think a lot of times what we do is we're so quick to talk about the negative experience or the negative feeling that we feel, and we don't counter it. Find something to counter it. If you're going to say something negative, find something to counter it, to say something positive. Don't overlook the good things about yourself. You may not have the clear skin. You may not have the long curly hair, but guess what? You have something about yourself that's uniquely you and makes you uniquely you. Number 6, stop comparing yourself to others. People come in all shapes and sizes. You're not supposed to look like anybody but yourself. I cannot say that more than 100,000 times a year. I look like me. I am me. Love me as I am. Mm-hmm. Number 7, cut out negative self-talk. Treat your body with the same kindness you treat a friend. You don't deserve verbal abuse from anybody, especially yourself. And even though we are getting closer to the end of time, I want us to talk about that one specifically, Sarah, because sometimes the way that we abuse ourselves is actually worse than what the outside does. Talk about some ways that we can self-love ourselves and give ourselves that self-talk that we need to get better.
Yeah, I think just recognizing it first is key, you know, and then when, like you said, when you can put those self-love practices into play, like that will help combat it, because we can continue to hear it and hear it over and over and over again until we just believe it, and no answer is right. You know, it's going to be like, we're not even open to the idea of that change. And I think that's where you have to just start small, you know, I think having that gratitude journal or having a Post-it note that you're like, okay, I'm just going to write these 5 things. You don't have to believe it. Okay. You don't, like in the beginning, you're not going to believe it. I mean, it's going to take, you know, some of us 30 to 40 years before we believe it. It's okay. Like, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. But I think what's important is just to start to take action on one of those things, because we're trying to retrain the brain. You're trying to have a new habit take place. And that takes a long time. I know that, 3 weeks they say? I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's not going to take 3 weeks. So don't compare your journey to that. So I think just starting small, I think those affirmations for you to see it back at you. And I think envisioning yourself even as a small child. And I've heard this before, where what if you were to write a love letter of encouragement to your former self? Like, what would you say to that person? And also, like, what are you saying right now to that person that could probably be that letter that you read it back to you, in the sense of the person 10 years from now, your person who you are 10 years from now wrote it for you. And now you're reading it. So sorry, it makes me a little bit emotional, but
that's amazing. And I absolutely love that. If you can write a love letter to someone else, you can write a love letter to yourself.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm definitely going to keep that one as a keeper for myself. All right, the next one.
Amen.
Absorb body positive messages. Balance out negative noise with some good noise. I am a proponent on music. Music makes the world go round. Listen to some good music. I'm all about jazz music, things that are going to calm my nerves, things that are going to make me feel good, because what you put into your body, whether that be emotionally, physically, in terms of food, it will be good for you. Number 9, do something nice for yourself. Go lay down in the grass, take a bubble bath, take a nap, and just give your body the gift of something that's good for it. I am a big proponent on bubble baths. I make sure that at least twice a week, I am taking a bubble bath where I have no noise, just my jazz music. Shout out to Boney James, because that's the guy who I listen to all the time. He is in my ear, and I am in the bathtub, and I am having that moment to myself. Number 10, focus on you as a whole person. Don't forget, you are so much more than how you look. Don't throw yourself out there to be negative. Throw yourself into your passion. Pick a hobby. Do something that's going to make you feel good, because as this says, you are enough. Okay, so remember that when you're going through your body image struggles. Sarah, you've been amazing on this show. I'm so excited to have had you. It was just an amazing show to have you a part of. Tell the viewers where they can find you if they're looking for a body image coach, or if they're even looking for a personal trainer.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Leah. No, you're amazing. Like, I'm so glad that, you're into this realm, and like just sharing, and, your heart and like your stories. I think that's so important. And yes, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. And you are beautiful, just FYI. Yes.
Thank you.
So beautiful. But yes, they can find me on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook under my name. So Sarah with an H, and then Placencia. So the word place, ENCIA.
I love that. That's like how I do. I tell people I'm Leah without the H, like in the Bible. So that's easy for people to remember.
There you go.
So as you know, we always end with a quote and Bible verse, and I'm going to end with this quote for you from Ellen DeGeneres.
I just watched a video of her today.
She's the woman. So listen, that's the person who I would love to end a perfect quote with.
Right.
To me, beauty is about comfortable in your own skin. It's about knowing and accepting who you are. Accept who you are. Guess what? I accept who I am because I have tattoos, and I am who I am.
Right.
With all my art.
I love
Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the things He had planned for us long ago. Thank you so much for tuning into our show, and we will see you next Friday for Lynn's segment. Till then, make butterfly moves daily. Bye, everybody.
Bye.